Fracking, or unconventional gas extraction from shale, is a hot topic recently for environmentalists, energy companies, and the public in general in the UK. In this series, I am going to give you a brief look into what fracking entails, why I think it's a good idea, and why anti-fracking organisations such as Frack Off are ruining respectable arguments against fracking. To start, we will look through the process of fracking, which involves similar steps to classic oil and gas extraction. The first step is, of course, exploration, to actually find the shale beds to frack, which involves companies attaining licenses for areas with shale potentially storing gas or coal beds containing methane. Frack Off have an accurate map of the licence areas already acquired by private companies for exploration. As shown, most are in the northwest and Yorkshire, which is unsurprising as shale formations in the UK are mainly in the northwest and Yorkshire, about half of which is under urbanised areas, which can cause problems. Exploration is currently where majority of fracking is up to in the UK, having caused few environmental problems. The main environmental problem brought up by anti-frackers is the two earthquakes caused in April and May of 2011, which were of 2.3 and 1.5 magnitude on the Richter scale respectively. The exploration company Quadrilla admitted in November 2011, over half a year after the earthquakes, that it was caused by their exploration drilling of the local area, specifically because of unusual geology of the area being put under pressure from the water injector, which he later says was a very rare geological structure. New Scientist went into detail on the subject of the earthquake, saying it was caused by a 100 by 100 metre fault 2 kilometres below the surface. While this may sound large, trying to find a fault of that size that deep is a geological lottery. The technique for mapping areas underground that deep involve interpreting cross-sections that look like this. This is a 400 metre deep section that is about 3 times the scale of the horizontal, giving an exaggerated depth. The deeper you cut for these sections, the more noise you have to filter out in processing. This means that deep sections can easily miss small faults, like they did in Blackpool. In response to the earthquake and backlash, Quadrilla said they would modify the water pressure injected and implement early warning systems for earthquakes. Although the earthquake is used by anti-frackers as proof that the process of drilling for shale gas is dangerous, they are all ultimately refuted by the reaction of locals and geologists. With locals thinking the quake was just a big lorry, and geologists such as Glenn Ford explaining that it is rare to have more than 2 or 3 earthquakes of 2.3 a year, and it is, quote, quite alarming to feel an earthquake like that. New Scientist also explained that the earthquakes of 2.3 are not particularly dangerous and occur about 15 times a year. Damage is limited to objects falling off shelves, which is a rarity in itself with earthquakes below magnitude 4. In conclusion, exploration in the UK is fairly safe, with risks that the government has regulations to minimise, and which Quadrilla had already enforced anyway. The step after exploration, which is extracting the gas from the shale. This is similar to conventional oil extraction, with the difference being the impermeable shale has to be fractured to extract the gas from within, instead of just extracting it from free-flowing oil in the permeable rocks below the shale. This difference has caused many problems in America, where regulation was simply not enforced before oil companies started drilling. This lack of regulation allows for American drilling companies to cut many corners with regard to safety to save money. In fact, the companies were exempt from having to disclose the chemicals used within fracking fluid, which is ridiculous. The fracking fluid in the US can include extremely harmful substances for the environment, such as thiourea, which kills half a rat population with just 125 milligrams per kilogram. This is an extremely poisonous substance. It has been reported that thousands of spillages have occurred in America since fracking's inception, with just under 4,500 in North Dakota alone. However, this might be because North Dakota requires less to be spilled than in other states for spillages to have to be reported. These spillages were mainly caused by equipment failure, according to Dr. Patterson from Duke University, possibly caused from lack of federal regulation. No surprises there. The industry dispute the impact spillages have on the environment, as they would. Katie Brown from Energy in Depth, a body founded by petroleum companies, says 70% of the spillages happen on the drilling pad, which means they can never reach the environment before they are cleaned up. However, this does mean that 30% of the spillages can reach the environment, as they are not spilled on the drilling pad. Although not in North Dakota, Wyoming has been the centre of an independent investigation, as benzene was found to be 50 times above the safety limit. Benzene is a relatively harmful substance, as ingestion of as little as 10 millilitres have been reported to be fatal. However, people have been reported to survive 60 millilitre ingestions. According to the study, the contamination was caused by malpractice of drilling, only 700 feet or 213 metres deep, dangerously close to the aquifers containing drinking water, which are about half that depth. Although the study mentions earlier drilling operations in the 1960s before fracking was introduced, where malpractice of drilling was also taking place, this only compounded the problem, as it was due to poor waste management and poor capping of the waste pits of the fracking fluid that caused this problem. It should be mentioned at this point that all these problems and risks are completely avoidable with strict regulation, and this is exactly what the UK government does. For the earthquakes fracking rarely causes, we have a traffic light system, where fracking sites monitor seismic activity for any type of tremor. As shown, anything above 0.5 magnitude on the Richter scale causes a complete halt to the operation, as injection pressure is reduced. In my opinion, this magnitude is far too low. It is rare to feel anything below magnitude 2, and seismographs are dreadfully unreliable at detecting magnitudes below 2. As for the fracking fluids, the UK is extremely strict on the issue, and rightly so. They ban any hazardous material to groundwater, and in fact only 6 additives are permitted in the UK's fracking fluid, which is not like the US where they are effectively limitless in their additives. So the fluid in the UK shouldn't have any detrimental effects on the environment if spilled. Shallow fracking in Wyoming is a very unusual fracking case. It's usually done between a mile and a mile and a half deep, or that's 1.5 or 2.5 kilometres. Given that aquifers are usually 100 feet or 300 metres deep, the fracking fluid should never reach the drinking water. It can't escape the impermeable shale either, assuming the shale is capped correctly. This concludes my introduction to fracking. There is much more to discuss on the subject, of course, such as the greenhouse effect, economic benefits of fracking, and Frackoff's minefield of a map. They are mental. However, with respect to these areas of fracking, as far as I'm concerned, there is no good reason not to frack, as long as you're in the UK, with their ridiculous amount of regulation.